Alright guys, this is going to be an update to the life stacker as I've made quite a few changes over the last few days. I've invested a little bit more into gear and it's probably a good point to just give everyone a little update on what I've actually done. This character has turned into an absolute powerhouse. It can clear everything really fast now. It's got insane damage. It's great for bossing and it's very, very tanky as well. So it's a good point for me to actually go through it now and show you everything with that. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is get into the skills. Now, there's going to be a lot of extra supports in here, and I'll explain that a little bit later with one of the passives we've taken. But the main thing you got to look at here is the Spark. So in Spark, we have a level 21 Spark with Projectile Acceleration 2, Mobility, Zenith 2, Heft, and the Bloodletting. Now, I have tried the full Fizz version, which had a lot higher tooltip. I got this to about 4 mil while sitting in the base here. But obviously, with the Fizz version, you don't get shock. And there is also alternatives to getting Bloodmage and not getting Bloodmage. But this is kind of what I've settled on after testing pretty much everything over the last couple of days. And I've come to the conclusion that the damage is just insane no matter what you do. It's just whatever you'd kind of prefer in a play style. But the lack of Bloodmage allows you to get more skills, passive points to other things, but you do lose the Sigil of Power as you can only get the one stage no matter how much you cast with this. So it is a bit of a trade-off, but you do get the shock with this one. So there's a lot of variance to what you can do, but this is just what I've come up with for mine. These other skills, don't worry about that for now. We'll come back to that in the passives section. Other than that, you just need a Sigil of Power with Magnified Area, Prolonged Duration, Cooldown Recovery, and Rapid Casting. But again, we only get to level 1 on it, so it's not as powerful as it was before. But if you would still like to use it, you can, but this is really a true one-button build. All right, we'll quickly get into the passives here. Now, I'm going to be jumping around on the passives and the gear with this one, but essentially what you're going to do is you're going to come up through the middle here and grab a lot of these crit nodes. They're really nice, and again, this is the end game setup. It's not going to be something that you level with, but this is what I've come up with in the min-maxing of the passive tree. You come to the left here, you've got the Touch the Arcane and the Sanguinic Rituals, which again, this is something that I'll probably get into when we talk about the gear, but essentially it gives you a ton of regen. But I'll talk about that when I go through kind of the gloves for that one. You come through, get as much cast speed as you can. Cast speed up here, you get these life conversions and just extra life cost. And you grab the socket down here. Going to the right, this is the nice slot for your Undying Hate Tech Rod. This allows you to get all your regen when you spend through Sacrifice of Blood. If you want a bit more detail on that, I'll have it in the last video I kind of created. Then we come down here. This is an insane Controlled Metamorphosis. I'll come back and talk about this when we go to the gear as well. We've got damage bonuses. We've got some life recovery with max life, more damage bonus. Movement penalty while using skills reduction. That's very nice. Acceleration, dual socket, more movement speed, and some crit nodes down here. And again, we'll talk about this stuff with the gear. But that's the main outline for the passive tree. As for the Ascendancy, we go and take Gore Spike. Gore Spike is currently not registering as a tooltip, but apparently it is working. So even if your damage doesn't go up from that, just assume that it's working from now. We still get Grasping Wounds for the extra tank. And we've swapped from Vitality Siphon to the Sanguine Tides. So this Sanguine Tides essentially is going to give you around about 50% Fizz damage extra. I know we get a ton from our Bloodletting anyway, but this is another 50%. And all you have to do is get an increased charges flask as high as you can. So get that, and it will allow you to have that extra boost of damage. We don't need the leech anymore, as our regen is about 60 or 70,000 while we're mapping. So that's all right. Now we're going to get into the gear. Now this is going to be probably the longest part of the video, and I'm going to be jumping around to the passive skill tree and all sorts of stuff as we go through this. There has been a lot of changes, mainly to the amount of jewels that I'm getting. There's also been a ton of changes to the gloves and the boots. I've crafted those myself. This pretty much is min-maxy, not as you can get, but maybe 95% min-maxed. You can go a bit further in terms of mirror tier gear and a couple of more luckier Vow Orbs. But this is pretty much going to be the pinnacle for now, unless we find any more tech over the next few weeks. So with our combs, we've got a 1785. I've seen these go like 1850, 1830, something like that. But I bought this for about 25 divines on a snipe, so that was pretty lucky with that one. And we've just got the max life runes in that one. The helmet, I crafted these myself. I bought about 15 and just Vow Orbed them, and this is the best one that I got. They about 35 or 40 exalts for the base, and then you can val them, and these are worth around 10 divines if you hit with this. So you can try your luck, or you can buy your one, however you would like. Amulets, this is quite an easy craft if you know how to use the Abyss crafting. You could probably do it for about 7 to 10 divines at this point. It's not too tricky to get exactly what you need. This one's very nice with the 5 tier 1s there, and I could also get the tier 1 crit bonus if I wanted to fish for that. And you could also use a different base, but I've gone for a rarity one for this. So that's kind of what you want. So again, we have opted for this +3 spell skills now over the Defiance. The damage is just so high, and the Defiance still isn't necessarily the wrong play. It's probably tankier in maps, but I haven't died in like 2 days on this character at this point, so I found just testing this out is fine. But if you have a Defiance, it's not necessarily the wrong play. Just your tooltip will be a bit less maybe on those bigger bosses, but you still should be able to kill them in a few seconds. With the ring, I think this is the same one as the last video. We have double cast speed, so the implicit cast speed and the explicit cast speed. Lightning damage doesn't really matter at this point, but we do have a little bit of it. Life, I think that's a tier 2 life roll. We have a double rarity roll, because I am getting rarity on this character. And then we have a chaos res roll as well, to just give us the chaos res that we need. We're a little bit under now, but I'll show you why shortly. Then we mirror it with Calandra's Touch, and then we boost it with an Ingenuity. You can choose whatever you want in this belt slot. You can get more life if you would just want to do a life belt with some chaos res and strength. You can use a headhunter if you want, but I've gone with an Ingenuity here with 33% increased bonuses. I was looking at breakpoints, and if I divine this ring to 28% cast speed, that will give me the extra +1 cast speed. It's a little min-maxy thing. You don't need one this good. I was using a 27% for a while, because that was my breakpoint on the ring there. But again, it's not even that good. It's just okay. It gives you quite a bit of damage, but it's nothing crazy. And it gives you some rarity as well. So 127, I get 26 rarity from it too. So it's not the most amazing thing in the world. It's only 100 life. If you want to get more life, you can go ahead and do that with just a rare belt. Or if you want to use a headhunter, you can do that too. Now, there's a couple more pieces here that are going to be kind of crazy for the damage. And I wish I really had another one to show you. But the Wrathpith here, these ones, they were going for quite cheap. I think it was like 25 divines. Now, people are really not understanding the 7% max life. Or not that they're not understanding it, they don't realize how strong it is. So when you val it, you can obviously go from 6% to 7% with the max life. You can get the increased damage to 12% as well. The 12% increased damage over the 10% is around 200% increased damage. So that is a ton of extra damage. So that by itself is just a nice upgrade to have. But the 7% life, your damage is directly scaled to how much your skills cost. So if you're making your skills cost more, which in this case mine's 4.1k now, it will boost the damage of a Wrathpith. So me going from just a plain one with 6% max life and 10% increased damage and putting this on, it was like a 30 or 40% more damage multiplier. These are insane. I don't know how many more are left on the market now, but getting them with the higher tiers is something that you really want to look into if you want to boost your damage to the next level. The other thing here is the wand. Now, I don't have, I think, the perfect one. I was doing the full Fizz version when I spent 40 divines or something on this, so there probably is slightly better alternatives out there. Definitely, if you got the triple gain, it would show up higher on the tooltip, but remember, we're not penetrating if we have fire or cold or anything like that, even lightning at this point. So I've just got gain damage, extra Fizz, and then a high spell damage roll. It's probably pretty close to what you want as a perfect one. Obviously, all the tiers could be higher, and you could Val Orb for the plus all skills, but this is pretty much what I'm looking at for mine. This does give me a lot of damage. All right, the next few things are the two pieces that I crafted. I guess we'll start with the boots here. So here I've got the increased effect of socketed items with 30% move speed base with 2 of the runes, 5% runes, which makes it 20% implicit. So that is going to be 50% move speed on that. These runes are about 10 divines each, and these boots cost me maybe 10 divines, maybe 15 divines to craft. I got pretty lucky with a few things. So you kind of don't want to put the runes in if you're going to valor them beforehand, but at the time I had to get this video out and I didn't want to break them because then I would struggle with the video. But obviously you could get a 35% increased move speed base if you wanted to, and then another extra 10% move speed if you got an extra rune socket. So you could get 15% more move speed than what we currently have, and we are actually sitting on 81, but a lot of that comes from the passive tree, which I'll show you. As for the reduced movement speed penalty, it's just a nice thing to have. And then the Chaos Res and Life is also kind of nice to have as well. And then probably the biggest piece that I hit was these gloves. So again, I was crafting these, the bases were quite cheap, and I managed to get them a good run and hit a couple of good stats in there. I hit int, I didn't have a problem with that because I can just change it to strength. You might want rarity instead of int there, you might want crit bonus instead of int, but that's just what happened to be what I got. And so int, chaos res, life, and then the increased effect of socket items, and then I val lobbed it and hit the triple socket. Now I've got the cast speed runes in here, so that gives me 32%, and then I've got the increased effect of Arcane Surge. Now we'll talk about this a little bit. So Arcane Surge grants 15% increased cast speed and 20% more mana regeneration rate. When we get to this node here, it changes the mana regeneration rate into life regeneration rate. And then we also have the effect of Arcane Surge nodes here, and then the effect over here with a couple of points just to make sure we can trigger our Arcane Surge to get it to work. So essentially what that does is it gives us, I don't know the exact number, it's probably 100%, 150% increased life regeneration rate, but essentially it makes our regeneration from like 35k to 60k, something like that, maybe even 70k. It's hard to tell with everything that's going on, and also gives us a ton of cast speed as well. And what that kind of means is the ramp up is a lot better when you're kind of going between packs. So you can kind of, you don't have to like hold it down the whole time. You can just tap cast. Even the start, you can just like 2 seconds of casting instead of maybe 5 seconds, and then you can run in for the mobs. So it is something that you should look into if you want to have a bit of a smoother playstyle. You don't need the triple socket. You just need to have the effects of Arcane Surge, and that is with a Kurgel's Gaze. You're only allowed one of these. So yeah, just try it out, see if you prefer it. I definitely prefer it after trying it out for a bit. And you can basically get those points by dropping Bloodmage if you want those extra ones as well. But if you drop Bloodmage, you're not getting the sigil power. So it's a way up, however you want to go about it. But it depends on how many points that you have for that one. We still have our same charms, Rite of Passage, and then our Silver Charm, Fall of the Axe. These are quite expensive, but they're just nice little things to have. And now we'll go over some of the jewels. So for the heart, we've got skill speed, double crit bonus, and 50% pierce. 50% from that, and then 40% from here gives us 90, and then I do have the other 10% here on the jewel. You don't need to have 100%, 90% works fine, but I just wanted to grab this for the movement speed and projectile speed, and then I swap this one out if I want to do more bossing orientated stuff, but it doesn't really matter, but they're both kind of nice to have. The other thing that we have bought is we have bought this nice From Nothing, which is the Valpat allocation. These are around 20 divines, and it actually allows you to get some crazy things. So you've got movement speed 3% and 2% and 2% with immune to hinder and immune to main. And then there's this node here, momentum, and I didn't realize how powerful this was. This gives about 9% movement speed because we've got our armor from our combs. It negates all of that. So this alone is 8 or 9%. Then you got 3%, 2%, 2%. It's giving an absolute ton of movement speed over there. And I have picked up this headshot node here as well. It's just crit bonus if they're a bit further away. It doesn't really seem necessary. You could easily just unallocate that. The other thing that I've got is I have got Gem Enthusiast Anointed on the amulets here. So this costs a little bit, maybe like 150 exalts. And then it says if you have at least 10 red support gems, you get 5% increased max life. At least 10 green support gems, you get 5% movement speed. We don't run anything else. We don't really care. We just put a bunch of skills in, get up to those 10 and 10 kind of breakpoints, and then we are actually getting the movement speed from that. So you can see 81. If I take this out, 76. And same with the life. If we've got about 9k, take it out, goes down to 8. So yeah, it does work. It's very, very strong. And I just anointed that on the amulet. And now for the craziest thing that I found earlier today. You can get yourself a controlled metamorphosis with the -3 chaos res. It doesn't matter about the all ally because our Veils of the Night it just keeps it at 0, so it doesn't make a difference. And 3% chaos res is a little bit of a loss, but we don't really care. And it actually hits some crazy things. Spaghettification for my +3 move speed and +13 all attributes, but do be mindful that you lose some chaos res. It gets Kite Runner, it hits For the Jugular, and it hits Harmonic Generator. So absolutely crazy nodes for the location here, and it's something that I really suggest you pick up if you can afford the points and the resistances. But as for the rest of the jewels, oh yeah, I do have these Grand Spectrums now. I managed to crop that one to a 6 strength. You don't need to do that. But if you get 3 of those, you get 18% more life. But they do cost quite a bit, so it's something to be weary of. I'm still just using a normal tech rod. I looked into a couple of attribute points, can't really be bothered for now, so I'm just leaving it like that. And yeah, I think that's the majority of the gear. Hopefully I went over everything there. I think I did. So yeah, it shouldn't be too much of an issue for you to just follow along with the gear there. But again, I crafted a lot of my stuff. I might put a guide out for how to craft the boots and the gloves, but it's probably something I don't have too much time for at the moment. But I just wanted to showcase all the upgrades for you guys. And yeah, hope you're enjoying the build. Feel free to subscribe if you want to see maybe an update next week, and also join me on Twitch if you want to see my stream. If I'm not currently streaming, just drop a follow and you'll see when I am live.